The film begins with a news report where a presenter announces that doctors at the medical center have noticed something strange but joyful. Cases of pneumonia and respiratory infections have decreased rapidly. This news brings peace and relief to people's hearts, especially since this relief comes after a vaccination campaign finished last month. However, this joy is short-lived because people quickly start complaining about flu-like symptoms again. Within just 3 days, a new strain of the virus appears and spreads at an imaginative and terrifying speed, leaving the Center for Disease Control baffled and unable to understand how things slipped out of their hands like this. Because emergency departments across the country became overcrowded with no room for a single foot, the government was forced to call in the army to set up field hospitals and try to accommodate the massive numbers of people. In the midst of this turmoil and chaos, presenter Amy manages to secure an interview with Dr. Campbell, one of the most prominent infectious disease specialists in the country. The doctor's advice is clear and direct. Everyone, calm down, keep your cool, and no one should leave their house unless there is a real disaster or emergency. In a personal moment far from formalities, Dr. Campbell sends a direct message to her daughter Jess, begging her to go to a safe place and lock herself in until this cloud passes and things become clear. The scene then shifts to a completely different atmosphere of calm and relaxation. We see Jess and her friend Sarah going on a camping trip in the forest with their boyfriends. The next morning, Jess wakes up terrified by strange noises coming from outside the tent. Her boyfriend goes out to check, and suddenly he sees a heart-stopping sight. Sarah is being attacked brutally. He doesn't have time to react and gets bitten severely on his neck. Jess barely manages to escape from the infected person who attacked them. With deep sorrow, she realizes her boyfriend is hopeless and won't recover from these injuries. She quickly helps Sarah up, and they both run toward the car and flee at top speed, just as other infected creatures start appearing from among the trees like demons. Inside the car, the situation worsens. Sarah is bleeding heavily, and her condition is deteriorating and hopeless. Jess tries to reassure her friend, promising to take her to the hospital and that everything will be fine. As soon as she spots a gas station, Jess parks the car and tells Sarah, "Stay here for a second, I'll go get help." She enters the station calling out, "Is anyone here?" But there is no sound or response. Suddenly, she hears police sirens. She runs out screaming and waving for them to stop, but no one pays attention to her. The cars fly by without offering any help. When she returns to her car, one of the infected suddenly appears, forcing her to get in and flee while these creatures chase the car. Since misfortunes never come singly, a tire blows out, and the car flips over in a severe accident. When Jess wakes up from the coma, she sees a heart-wrenching sight. Her friend Sarah has turned into one of the monsters Jess saw. She has no choice but to kill her friend to protect herself. While doing so, an infected person attacks her from behind and bites her. She manages to push him away and flee the scene. On her way, she meets a little girl, but unfortunately, she notices the girl is also infected, so she decides to continue fleeing to save her own skin. Jess keeps walking until she finds a seemingly abandoned house. She says, "This is where I'll hide." She finally enters the house, finds some water to wet her throat, and sits calling out if anyone is there. But the silence is broken when she slips in a pool of blood on the floor, and a zombie appears out of nowhere and attacks her. Jess resists, fights with all her strength, and manages to finish him off. In this moment, a woman named Emma appears and tells her she spent the whole night hiding in the house because that monster wouldn't leave. The surprise is that the monster was her sister's husband. Emma says she must find her sister and niece at any cost. Jess introduces herself, and Emma suggests they go together to a nearby cafeteria where people are gathering and waiting for this cold spell to pass. Emma believes there is strength in numbers and tells Jess she needs a shower urgently because her clothes are soaked in blood. Jess enters the bathroom to clean herself, and here Emma spots a strange wound on Jess's stomach. She insists on seeing it, and it turns out to be clear teeth marks, a bite. She asks her, "When were you bitten?" When Jess says a few hours ago, Emma becomes very suspicious because transformation usually happens much faster. Jess tries to find an explanation and remembers her scientist mother used to give her many injections when she was young, which might be why her body is resisting the virus unexpectedly. Emma agrees to help her and take her to her mother, but sets one strict condition. "Don't you dare mention to anyone that you are bitten, so people don't panic or turn against you." On the way to the cafeteria, they prepare themselves and manage to enter the building. There they meet Roy, an annoying man who is surprised by Jess's presence and uncomfortable with this stranger. But Emma saves the situation, telling him Jess saved her life and is a good girl. Inside, Jess gets to know the rest of the group: Martha and her husband Fred, Lucy, and Brandon. Jess asks them, "Are you planning to stay locked up here waiting for relief?" Brandon replies bitterly, "No one knows we're in this hole, and no one is looking for us." Martha explains that she and her husband are old and their health doesn't allow them to go anywhere else. Amidst the conversation, Jess spots a little girl named Grace sitting with her older brother, Mark. Mark says their uncle is a survivalist who has a farm outside the city, and they were heading there but got stuck in this cafeteria. Roy starts imposing his control on Jess, telling her the system here and that he decides eating and drinking times. Then he turns to Fred and accuses him of stealing an extra water bottle last night. Fred gets angry and refuses to accept this, saying, "I'd rather die than take anything from your hand." At this time, presenter Amy appears on the screen again with new information about the disease eating away at the country. She says the whole problem is a direct result of the flu vaccine called C1. A dead virus used in manufacturing mutated after being injected into millions of humans. The bad news is also that symptoms appear in a time varying from a week to less than 24 hours. And anyone who took the vaccine now carries the virus in their body. As soon as he hears this, Roy comments gloatingly that the government always leads us to disaster with its mistakes, and he never imagined living to see a day like this. Suddenly, the lights start flickering and Roy says, "We must go check the generator. Those monsters must have hit it again." He calls Brandon, and Jess offers to go with him. Roy agrees, and the three leave the cafeteria. They find no one outside on their way, but while Roy tries to fix the generator, a zombie suddenly appears and attacks him. Brandon shoots, but the zombies gather quickly, forcing him and Jess to run back inside, leaving Roy to his fate. Everyone inside is shocked except Fred, who looks relieved that this annoying man has gone to hell. Mark asks, "Is help coming?" Jess admits, "I know as much as you do." Faced with this situation, Emma decides that staying has no point and they must leave. Mark suggests taking Jess and Grace to his uncle's farm, which is on their way. Fred decides to stay to care for Lucy and his wife Martha, who is starting to get sick. Emma thanks him and wishes Martha recovery. Then, they take Roy's car parked in the back and leave. On the way, they finally find Emma's sister, who runs to meet them. Megan, Emma's sister, recounts that they were close to escaping, but her infected daughter bit and killed her. Emma collapses completely from the news. Then the group tries to take her with them, but she moves away and surrenders herself to the zombies attacking her. The others escape and stop at a shop. Brandon decides to enter alone to explore. They hear gunshots, run to him, and find him being attacked. They try to push the monster away, but the numbers increase as other infected appear. Brandon decides to make a brave move and sacrifice himself so his friends can escape. Indeed, they escape. But the zombies follow them until the car breaks down, and they decide to continue on foot. Finally, they reach Uncle Ben's farm, but find the whole place occupied by zombies. The girls run to hide in a truck, and Mark stands back, making himself bait to distract the monsters. He jumps into a car and drives to clear the way for them to get out of the truck. The girls get out and find Uncle Ben, who takes them to a safe place and his secret shelter inside the bunker. Jess and Grace meet Ben Clayton, Mark's uncle. He welcomes them warmly, saying, "Make yourselves at home." At the same time, Mark manages to start the car and drives away quickly, escaping even when a father and his two sons attack him with gunfire. We return to the shelter, and Jess discovers a shocking surprise. This man is not Ben at all. He is his neighbor who lived in a caravan next to the warehouse. The man confesses that the real Ben was his friend helping him with his projects, but he got bitten outside, so he had to kill him, sacrifice him, and take his place. The disaster is that this man intends to blow up the entire place. Later, the girls manage to escape him miraculously and meet Mark, who arrives just in time to save them. They return to the road, but Mark is dying. His condition is critical. He asks Jess to promise him she will take care of his sister Grace and try to make the world a better place for her. Grace sits crying and begging him not to leave her, but he tells her, "I love you," and dies right there. Jess and Grace continue alone. Of course, zombies appear again, and while Jess fights desperately to protect the girl, a dignified old man appears and finishes off the monsters around them. He introduces himself as Higgins and takes them to his farm. There, he teaches Jess how to hold a gun correctly and steady her hand to aim properly. Jess trains on a few zombie targets and gains confidence. Then she meets his nephew and his fiancée. In the end, this noble man gives them a strong mountain car that can handle the road so they can continue their journey to the lab safely. Jess thanks him from her heart and goes back to get Grace. But the shock is discovering that the little girl has been bitten. The infection is spreading very quickly in her body. Jess enters a state of denial, not wanting to believe reality. But the old man tells her with utmost calm and wisdom that because she is young, the transformation won't take long and will be fast. Despite this, Jess refuses to do what needs to be done there. The man's nephew offers to finish the matter himself, but she insists it is her responsibility because she promised the girl's brother she would care for her. Before leaving, the three clear the road of zombies outside to ensure their safe exit. Then, Jess drives until she stops the car in the middle of the road. tears flooding her face. She is forced to do the hardest thing a human can do: end the child's life. She buries her there and continues her way. Later, Jess continues until she reaches Atlanta and finds the lab, but falls into an ambush of a massive number of zombies. She fights fiercely with every weapon she has, but numbers defeat courage, and it is clear she will lose. Suddenly, a woman named Tori appears, shooting at the monsters like a professional. She introduces herself as lab security. Jess tells her she is looking for Dr. Campbell, and Tori knows who that is immediately. Inside the lab, Jess finds a recorded video message left by her mother, Dr. Judith Campbell. The mother looks sick and tired in the recording. She says everyone has fled or been infected, leaving only her and the security officer. She recounts that she knew deep down Jess would survive because her daughter never got sick a day in her childhood thanks to rare antibodies in her blood. The mother confesses that the scientific team is the reason for this whole disaster. They thought the vaccine would work, but the virus mutated and went out of control. She says she destroyed the remaining useless vaccines and handed a box containing the original virus to Tori, who knows exactly where to take it. The idea was simple. Scientists will take Jess's blood with the antibodies, along with the original virus, and figure out how to stop this farce. Dr. Campbell ends the message with touching words, saying Jess has always been strong, and if there is hope in this world, that hope is Jess. After that, Tori explains there is another lab in Washington, and they must reach there by any means. Jess asks her, "The Jeep is ruined. Do you have any armored vehicle?" The guard replies she only has a motorcycle. Tori opens the garage door, clears the path of zombies outside, and the two set off on the motorcycle, armed and with iron determination. In the end, a voiceover explains that in July 2021, doctors confirmed that Jess's blood indeed produces this rare antibody. Scientists merged this antibody into something called CO321, which was a secret government weapon used to manipulate weather, meaning the weapon made to destroy became the perfect means to spread the vaccine in the air and distribute it to the whole world. Finally, the film leaves a last message telling us we must never lose hope. This is the end of the film.